Welcome and welcome back. In today's video, we wanted to talk a little bit about off-arm mechanics, particularly we use the snatch, and how much power you have or you don't have between using an off-arm and not, correct?
Sure.
Okay, well, let's get into it. So we set up a little experiment using our electronic device. That's right, we're combining old school versus new school, because we're cool.
Oh, that's rhyming a little bit. That's great.
And what we were looking for is to see when we did our snatch, if we had more power with our movement or if we had more power locked down, wherever that was. So what did we find?
What we found is that for both of us, we did better with the arm either straight out or in the on guard position. I guess we should give the whole conversation a little bit of context. There's an idea called summation of forces, where all the different forces or all the different joints that can contribute to a motion, those forces get summed to equal the total force that you can create in a movement. So if we're going through the snatch, it is theoretically possible by swinging the arm, which can help propel the torso, which can help propel the bell, you can actually gain power by doing that, by moving that arm forward. So we were taught, naturally to move the off arm. It computed with, what we know about biomechanics and physics, that there is a theoretical possibility. But what we found is that it can cause too much rotation. And specifically, what we're looking at is, go ahead and demo. Just actually square is probably better. Okay. Hey. What we're looking at here, the snatch is going to be sagittal plane power. So forget about how you're generating it. We're just talking about the direction the bell wants to go. It wants to go straight forward and straight back. So if this is our goal and this is where we're going to have the most power, then we want to preserve that line as well as we can. Now, when there's a swing back, and let's say he points or he over rotates and he opens that chest, this rotation here can throw off his hip, and it can actually, when he unscrews or goes into the next snatch, he now has power. Obviously that's really exaggerated, but he now has some power moving in the transverse plane. So he's got power moving that way and he's got power moving that way. Some of this power can cancel out that sagittal plane power. So it may not be that the arm is going to be the best for everybody. There are going to be some factors that are going to influence that. Now, interestingly, the differential that we saw between his static off arm and his active off arm was small. It wasn't as big, but you'll notice we've pointed this out before, just let your arm drop. If you look at where his hand is relative to his thigh, beneath his shoulder, there's a relatively small gap. And if you look at my right side, there's a relatively large gap, roughly the size of a human head. Don't ask how I know that. So if we have this bigger space, I'm going to be able to rotate more. The space between here and here is greater. When my arm goes back, it's going to actually create, it'll have a longer moment arm. It'll allow my body to create more torque and actually pull me more relative to my narrower hips. So the differential between mine was more substantial than his. His was relatively negligible. So we saw with both of us that having a stiff or a static off arm increased power, him less than me. So for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. I'm not going to use the off arm for quite some time. Now, what we were working on, which obviously was before we started doing this video, was him changing the direction he pointed. So he was pointing roughly back here, and when he was going down into his backswing, he was doing a little bit more of that. If he takes this arm and points it maybe here, this is going to give him that off arm. And once he gets this down, my guess is he'll be either be dead even, or he'll actually be able to get more power with this. We've got to see. We also need to see when he's pointing here, when he swings it back up this way, what direction is it going to be? Is he going to be able to bring it straight up? Or is it going to come in and cause rotation back the other way? We don't know yet. So we're going to have to play with
pesky arm.
Something though to consider when we look specifically with Jeremiah's snatches, the differential between using the arm and not using the arm was not that significant. So he can get more power with that arm static. If that's the goal, then that's what he should use for right now. But when we really look long term, let's say over the course of a longer workout, there are other things that that off arm does. It can help him stop. It can help him stabilize. When we're in this top position, this arm being pointed down here gives you a nice line across the shoulder. This arm reaching can help stabilize the shoulder. This arm popping this way, pushing back, can help. As this snatch goes overhead, because this is where the weight is, bend your arm, because this is where the weight is going, it's going to want to rotate him this way. If he brings this arm back, he's also going to rotate himself back this way. So that can help balance out the rotation. So over the course of a long snatch workout, it may be that this off arm for him is the way to go, even though he loses a little bit of power. So check your training objective. If he needs the power, probably doesn't want to use that arm. Unless it's over a longer course. If it's more endurance, it may be a toss-up. Which one felt better to you?
It's tough because it's so unnatural the way I've been doing it to hold the arm there. But I felt more locked in this position, and it did feel more natural because I've been doing it this way for so long. And then when we changed the position, it was still a little awkward. So, long story short, that was a non-answer.
Didn't answer at all. Rewind this. He did not, in fact.
There was no answer there. Hey, vote for me in November, okay? Whenever.
Whenever. I'll be running for something.
You got me, okay?
So I think what he was saying is that he's used to the other way, and it's a bit awkward to change. So he won't know until he practices more. Yeah. I think is that what you?
Yeah, and I think pretty much. And I think the long story short of it is it wasn't that much of a difference. Whereas when you look at the graphic, which I'll post up here somewhere, you'll see the big difference in the way Rogers was. So it makes sense for him to lock it down a little bit more to continue to generate more power.
Further, one last little note with mine, my arm on some sets, not all, my arm rotation would cause this knee to dip in. This arm would go back behind me at the same time in my backswing. That knee would go in a little bit. That could be a potential for pain. That could be a potential for injury. I definitely felt weaker. And sometimes I will feel a little banged up in my legs when I'll do a lot of snatches. So that could be one of the reasons why I don't have any back issues, luckily. But again, I like a nice strong base. I don't want to disrupt that at all. So for me, even though it's not necessarily about power, it does seem like it's better for my safety and longevity, doing kettlebell stuff until I'm really, really old.
Yeah, hey, and there you go. Hey, remember, use your video. Check some of these things out on you, because you may not notice that you have some compensations or where your arm goes and how that affects your whatever. Yeah. Generally, anything that it does. And that pretty much sums it up. Again, check out the graphic here. We have scientific data. So,
scientific.
Yeah, scientific.
Two idiots in a push band.
in an app, right? And don't forget, speaking of apps, download the Bells by Iron Revival. It's on the Apple App Store, and you can get your workouts in that way too.
We have an app.
We have an app. Oh my God, that's the greatest video ever. I'll link it in the description. All right, anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, train smart, stay strong.